Have you noticed how hard it has become to focus lately? You sit down with the intention to study for an hour, just 1 hour. You tell yourself it won't be that hard, but 5 minutes later, your phone vibrates. You check it without thinking. One message turns into another, then a video, then a post, and suddenly 40 minutes have passed. You didn't choose to waste that time, it just disappeared. Or maybe you open your laptop to work on something important, a project, an assignment, something that actually matters to your future. But before you even begin, you find yourself switching tabs, checking things that are completely unrelated, reading articles you didn't plan to read, watching videos you didn't even enjoy. And at the end of the day, you feel tired, not because you worked hard, but because your mind was pulled in too many directions. If this sounds familiar, there's something important you need to hear. This doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you're broken. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with your brain. It means you're living in the most distracting environment in human history. Today, we are surrounded by constant stimulation, notifications, music, news, messages, endless content competing for a single thing, your attention. And when your attention is constantly divided, nothing ever gets your full presence. Your focus starts to leak, slowly, quietly, like water dripping from a cracked container. And the scary part is this: most people don't even realize it's happening. According to research, when you get interrupted while working or studying, it takes an average of more than 20 minutes to fully regain your focus. Think about that. One quick glance at your phone can cost you 20 minutes of mental clarity. Now multiply that by how many times you switch tasks in a day. That's not just lost time, that's lost depth, lost learning, lost progress. But what if the problem isn't that we're distracted? What if the problem is that we never learned how to protect our attention? What if there was a way to train your mind to do one thing at a time so completely that distractions lose their power? This idea exists, and it's not new. It didn't come from Silicon Valley, and it wasn't invented by a productivity influencer. It comes from Japan, from Zen practice, and it's called Ichigyo Zamai. Ichigyo Zamai means giving your full attention to a single action, one thing, nothing else, no division, no background noise in the mind. Today, we're going to talk about Ichigyo Zamai, not as some ancient idea, but as a real, practical skill that can genuinely change your life. But before we go any further, I want you to do something. Think about this honestly. What is the number one thing that pulls your attention away every single day? Is it your phone? Scrolling without thinking? Jumping between tasks? Or maybe your own thoughts, the ones that never slow down? Don't overthink it. Just name it. In fact, type it in the comments section, not for me, for you. There's something surprisingly powerful about admitting it out loud. Hold that distraction in your mind, because as you hear this story, you're going to see exactly why it's been controlling your life far more than you realized, and how Ichigyo Zamai can help you take that control back. Chapter 1. A Dream That Felt Out of Reach. Maya was 17 years old when something inside her began to feel off. Nothing was wrong exactly. That was the problem. From the outside, her life looked fine. She showed up to school every day. Her grades were decent, not failing, not exceptional. Teachers described her as intelligent, curious, and capable, the kind of student who had potential, but never seemed to fully show it. Maya liked solving problems. She enjoyed logic puzzles, patterns, systems that made sense. When something finally clicked, when a difficult concept became clear, she felt a quiet satisfaction that was hard to explain to anyone else. She had been interested in computers since she was young, not in a flashy way. She didn't care much about games or trends. What fascinated her was how things worked beneath the surface, how a few lines of code could control something complex, how systems communicated, how logic turned into movement, behavior, and results. But despite all of that, Maya felt stuck. It was a strange feeling. She was busy all the time, yet she never felt truly productive. Her days were full, but her progress felt shallow. And hovering quietly over everything was a dream she rarely said out loud. Maya wanted to study at Harvard, and one day she wanted to work as a software engineer at NASA. It wasn't a casual dream. It wasn't something she picked up from a movie or a social media post. She had been fascinated by space for years. She followed missions closely. She read about satellites, rovers, and deep space probes. She watched lectures about orbit calculations, guidance systems, and exploration technology. What fascinated her most wasn't the rockets themselves. It was what made them possible. The software, the unseen code running in the background, the systems that had to be flawless, the programs that guided machines millions of miles away with no room for error. That was what she wanted to work on one day. But there was a gap, a growing one. Whenever Maya sat down to study, something strange happened. Her body was there, but her attention wasn't. She'd open her laptop with the intention to focus, but within minutes her mind would drift. She'd check one message, then another. She'd look something up real quick. She'd switch tabs not because she wanted to, but because her mind felt restless. She could sit at her desk for hours and still feel like she had done nothing. It wasn't avoidance, it was fragmentation. Her attention never stayed in one place long enough to go deep. She was busy all the time, mentally active, constantly thinking, but when the results came back, tests, assignments, projects, they didn't reflect the effort she was putting in. Some days she blamed herself. Maybe I'm not disciplined enough. Maybe other people are just better at this. Maybe I want too much. Other days she told herself she'd fix it tomorrow, that she just needed to try harder, focus more, push through. But tomorrow kept looking like today. Her friends talked about college in a different tone, safer choices, more realistic plans, schools close to home. Nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't what Maya wanted. And every time she mentioned Harvard, the reaction was always the same. A pause, a polite smile, a quick change of subject. No one said it was impossible, but no one said it was possible either. And slowly, quietly, that silence began to weigh on her. She felt caught between who she was and who she wanted to become, between her ambition and her daily habits, between a future that excited her and a present that felt scattered and frustrating. She didn't lack intelligence. She didn't lack curiosity. What she lacked, though she didn't know how to name it, was control over her attention. And that was the beginning of everything. Chapter 2. The Moment of Realization. The moment things shifted for Maya didn't look dramatic at all. There was no meltdown, no big scene, no sudden life-changing moment. It happened during a regular school day after a math and computer science test. The test wasn't supposed to be hard. The topics were familiar. She had practiced similar problems before. But when she walked out of the classroom, she felt a tightness in her chest. She knew she hadn't done her best, not because the questions were impossible, but because her mind kept drifting while she studied. She remembered reading one question, then thinking about a YouTube video. She remembered trying to solve a coding problem, then catching herself replaying a random conversation. She remembered looking around the room and wondering how everyone else seemed so focused. When the results came back later that week, she didn't rush to check her score. She waited until people left the room, then turned the paper over. It wasn't a failing grade, but it wasn't close to what she needed. It was the kind of grade that doesn't crash your average, but makes you question everything. She held the paper for a few seconds without moving. And the truth was, she wasn't surprised. She had felt this coming. Every study session felt scattered. Every plan ended halfway. Every day ended with her feeling busy but not accomplished. That afternoon, Maya went home quietly and sat at her desk. Her books were still open from the night before. Her notes were messy. Her laptop was closed. Her phone lit up with notifications. She picked it up, then put it right back down. For the first time, she felt tired in a deeper way. Not from lack of sleep, but from always trying to focus and never actually settling into the work. She sat there for a long moment, looking at her desk, and a simple thought came to her. I'm not really present when I study. Saying it to herself felt uncomfortable, but it was true. She wasn't struggling because she wasn't smart enough. She wasn't behind because the material was too hard. She wasn't failing because she didn't care. She was struggling because she wasn't focused. Her mind was always jumping around, half on the work, half somewhere else. Always switching, always distracted, always on the move but never moving forward. And in that quiet moment she felt something she hadn't felt before. a small fear that her dream might slip away if she kept living like this. Harvard wouldn't wait for her. NASA wouldn't magically fall into place. Nothing big would happen if her attention stayed scattered. She leaned back in her chair and stared at the ceiling, letting that truth settle. If she didn't change something, nothing would change, and she finally knew it. Chapter 3: The Mentor Who Asked the Right Question. A few days later, Maya stayed after school for robotics club. It was one of the few places where she felt fully herself. She liked building things, fixing mistakes, and watching ideas turn into actual working parts. The club was run by Mr. Keller, a quiet man in his late 50s. He had worked as an aerospace engineer before becoming a teacher. He wasn't the type to give long speeches or hype anyone up, but he had a way of noticing things other people missed. That afternoon, after everyone packed up and left, he saw Maya still sitting at her workstation, turning a small gear in her hand. "You okay?" he asked. She tried to smile. "Yeah, just thinking." He pulled up a chair and sat beside her. Maya didn't plan to talk, but once she started, it all came out. She told him about her goals, Harvard, NASA, how hard she was trying, how her results never matched the time she spent, how she kept drifting mentally no matter how serious she was. Mr. Keller didn't interrupt. He just listened. After a moment, he leaned back and asked, "When you study, how many things are you doing at once?" Maya let out a small laugh. "Honestly, too many." "How many tabs do you keep open?" "Way more than I should." "And your phone?" "Always right next to me." He nodded like he already knew the answer. "This isn't a motivation problem. You care about your goals, that's clear." She looked at him, unsure where he was going with this. "It's an attention problem." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He rested his hands on the table and said, "People think the smartest students succeed because they think faster. That's not true. The ones who go far are the ones who can stay with a problem longer than everyone else." He paused for a moment, then added, "And that's a skill you can learn." He stood up to put a few tools away, then looked back at her. "I want to show you something. Come by tomorrow. I think it'll help." Chapter 4: Ichigyo Zamai. The next afternoon, Maya waited until the rest of the robotics club drifted out of the room. She packed up slowly, hoping she didn't look as nervous as she felt. Mr. Keller was wiping down a workbench, humming quietly. The light from the windows made the room feel calm, almost like the end of a long day in a workshop. "Mr. Keller?" she said softly. He looked up and his expression warmed. "Maya, you stayed back?" "Yes, sir. I was thinking about what you said yesterday." He nodded, set his cloth aside, and motioned for her to sit at the table across from him. She did. She always felt a certain respect around him, not because he demanded it, but because he carried himself with a kind of quiet discipline she admired. He reached into his bag and pulled out a single page, worn at the edges, like he had carried it for years. He placed it in front of her with both hands, almost ceremonially. At the top, written in simple black letters, were two words, Ichigyo Zamai. Maya read it aloud. Ichigyo Zamai. What does it mean? Mr. Keller sat back slightly. It means one act fully done. It's a principle from Zen practice, old but powerful. I thought it might help you. She looked at him, curious. "Let me tell you the story behind it," he continued. "It'll make more sense once you know where it comes from." He folded his hands on the table. A long time ago in Japan, monks trained not just through meditation, but through everyday life. They treated simple tasks as training for the mind. When they swept the floor, they only swept. When they prepared meals, they paid attention to every motion. When they repaired tools or tended the gardens, they gave their full presence. He paused. They believe that the mind becomes what it repeats. If you practice scattered attention, you live a scattered life. If you practice full attention, you build a strong mind. Maya listened closely. "But it wasn't only monks," he said. "Craftsmen used it too. Swordsmiths who worked on a single blade for weeks, calligraphers who spent years learning one stroke. Even samurai used it, staying calm and focused in moments that could decide life or death." He let that sink in. For them, Ichigyo Zamai wasn't just a technique, it was a way of living, a way of respecting the moment you were in. Maya touched the page gently. The idea felt simple but weighty, like something that had survived centuries for a reason. Then he shifted the story toward her. Today, people live the exact opposite way, he said. Multitasking, switching every few minutes, flooding the mind with noise, and then they wonder why they can't stay focused long enough to do meaningful work. She nodded slowly. It felt uncomfortably true. But the key thing, he added, your attention isn't fixed. It can be trained, just like strength, just like skills. He leaned forward, lowering his voice a little. Maya, if you want Harvard, if you want NASA, you need the ability to stay with a problem long enough to solve it. That is what separates strong engineers from average ones. He paused. And Ichigyo Zamai is one of the most reliable ways I've ever seen to build that ability. She swallowed, feeling the impact of his words. It doesn't matter how distracted you are now, he said. Anyone can change the way their mind works if they practice the right habits. He tapped the page with a finger. This practice has helped people overcome procrastination, rebuild discipline, and strengthen their focus, not by forcing themselves to work harder, but by learning to be fully present. Then he took another sheet of paper and wrote 4 short lines. Let me give you something practical, he said, something you can use today. He slid the paper to her. It said, 1. Prepare the space, remove anything you don't need, clear the desk, put your phone far away, less noise, more clarity. 2. Choose one task, not 3, not 5, 1. Write it down so your brain knows exactly what you're doing. 3. Set a short block of time, 10 minutes, 15, 25 if you can. Stay with the task until the timer ends. 4. When your mind wanders, notice it. Don't get angry, don't judge yourself, just return to the task gently, over and over. That's the training. Maya read the list slowly. It felt manageable, almost too simple. This is how you practice Ichigyo Zamai, he said. Not through perfection, but through repetition. Each time you bring your attention back, you're strengthening that part of your mind. He gave her a calm smile. You don't need to master it today. You just need to start. Maya folded the page carefully, almost protectively. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope that she could actually change. Thank you, sir, she said quietly. He nodded once, with a proud look in his eyes. You're capable of more than you think. You just need your attention to match your aspiration. Maya left the room feeling lighter, but also more determined. For the first time, she had a method, a guide, a way forward. Chapter 5. The First Attempt. That evening, Maya paused at the doorway to her room. She stood there for a moment replaying Mr. Keller's voice in her head. He had spoken with such calm certainty that she almost felt embarrassed by how chaotic her habits had become. She took a slow breath and stepped inside. Her room wasn't messy, but her desk was crowded. Pens scattered, books half open, notes stacked in unplanned piles, her phone charging right beside her keyboard like a magnet for distraction. She knew she had to do this differently. So she started with the one step that felt the hardest. She left her phone in the living room. Not silent, not face down, out of reach. Just doing that made her heart beat a little faster. It surprised her how attached she was to it without even realizing. Next, she turned to her desk. She began clearing it, not frantically, but with the quiet intention Mr. Keller described. She put away papers she didn't need, placed her calculator in the drawer, lined up her notebooks, wiped the surface clean. It wasn't a big desk, but by the time she finished, it felt like a different space. Then she opened her laptop. For once, she didn't let herself start with 10 tabs. She closed everything until only one was left. Her textbook, her notes, nothing else. She took out a small piece of paper and wrote down one task, just one, the simplest part of her upcoming assignment. It felt almost too small, but that was the point. She looked at the clock on her screen. Her finger hesitated just for a second before she set the timer for 25 minutes. When the timer started, she sat up straight. Her desk was quiet, her room was quiet, her mind was not. In the first few minutes, she felt it immediately. Her brain kept pushing her towards anything except the task in front of her. Check your email. Maybe someone messaged you. Look up that thing you were curious about. Just a quick peek. It won't matter. It was like a constant tug on her attention. Not aggressive, just endless. She didn't expect it to be so loud, but she remembered what he told her. Notice when your mind wanders. Don't get upset. Come back to the task over and over. That's the training. So every time her thoughts drifted, she caught them gently, like catching a balloon before it floated away, and brought her attention back, again and again and again. She wasn't graceful about it. Sometimes she lost a whole minute before she realized she was imagining something random. Sometimes she felt irritated. Sometimes she felt silly. But she kept returning. Around the 10-minute mark, something softened. Her thoughts were still there, but they weren't pulling as hard. Her breathing slowed. She wasn't rushing anymore. She was just here, working, present, steady. It startled her how rare that feeling had become. She kept going until she heard the soft ding of the timer. She blinked. 25 minutes had passed. She looked down at her notebook, and there it was, actual progress. Clean lines of work, a finished problem set, no shortcuts, no half-done pages she'll finish later. For the first time in a long time, she completed the exact tasks she set out to do. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, but honestly. She leaned back in her chair, letting the feeling settle in. It wasn't pride exactly. It was something quieter, but deeper. A sense of control she hadn't felt in months. She glanced towards her doorway, thinking of the phone sitting in the other room. For once, she didn't rush to grab it. She didn't need it. She had done something better tonight. She had taken her first step. Chapter 6. Something Shifts. The next few days didn't bring any big surprises for Maya. No miracles, no sudden transformation, nothing movie-like. But she kept practicing. She set up her desk the same way every afternoon. Phone in another room, one tab open, one task written on a small sheet of paper. Then she'd take a breath, hit the timer, and try. Some days felt smooth. Some days were rough. And some days she wondered if it was even working at all. But slowly, almost quietly, she noticed a change. The distractions that usually pulled her around like a magnet didn't feel as strong. Her mind still wandered, sure, but it didn't drift as far. And when it did, she found her way back a little quicker. It was like her brain was learning, step by step, what it meant to stay with one thing. Then came the moment everything clicked. One afternoon, she was working on a coding problem for Robotics Club. Just a simple bug fix she'd been stuck on for a while. She typed, paused, thought, tried again. And for the first time in a long time, her mind wasn't jumping from idea to idea like a bouncing ball. It wasn't trying to escape the task or search for something more exciting. It was just there, present. She didn't notice the time passing. She didn't feel bored. She didn't feel that tight, anxious pressure to hurry. She was simply focused. When she finally leaned back and blinked, her eyes dry from staring at the screen, she checked the clock. An entire hour had gone by. An hour. No scrolling, no impulsive tab switches, no mental ping pong. Just steady work. And the feeling that washed over her wasn't pride. It was calm. A kind of calm she hadn't felt in months. That's when it hit her. This whole thing wasn't about forcing herself to concentrate. It wasn't about being some super disciplined genius. It was about setting the right conditions. Clear desk, one task, minimal noise, a small window of protected time. It wasn't magic, just structure. A simple structure that allowed her brain to do what it was capable of all along. And as she sat there realizing what she had just experienced, something else became clear. She wasn't changing by accident. She was changing because she had finally given her attention a place to rest. And that felt like the beginning of a different version of her. Chapter 7. The Results Compound. The weeks that followed didn't feel special at first. Maya wasn't suddenly top of her class, and she didn't wake up feeling like a new person. But slowly, almost quietly, things started to shift. Her grades began to inch upward. A few extra points here, a cleaner solution there. Assignments felt less chaotic. Tests didn't drain her the way they used to. Ichigyo Zamai became her default mode. Studying, one topic at a time. Coding, one small piece until it was right. Reading, no phone, no half focus. Even in conversations, she tried to actually listen instead of thinking about 5 other things. People around her noticed the difference. Her teachers started giving different kinds of comments. Not just good job, but things like, your explanations are clearer. This is more thoughtful than usual. You're improving. For Maya, it was the first time in years she felt like her effort matched her results. When college application season came around, she didn't panic the way she expected. The deadlines, the essays, the recommendation letters, all the things that usually made students spiral, she approached them the same way she approached everything else. One step, complete it, move on. Writing her essays wasn't this stressful, dramatic process. She'd sit down, set up her quiet space, and write what she actually felt. Then she'd review it the next day with fresh eyes. Submitting her application didn't feel like a moment of fear. It felt like she had finally done something the right way. Months later, an email arrived in her inbox. Application status update. That was it. Simple and plain. The kind of subject line that makes your stomach drop for no reason. She clicked it, expecting the worst, but the first sentence made her freeze. She read it again, then again. Harvard. She sat there in her chair, holding her breath, like the world had gone quiet for a second. It wasn't loud joy, it wasn't a movie moment. It was a soft, steady realization. She actually did it. By showing up fully, by simplifying her attention, by doing one thing at a time. And for the first time, she understood something deeply. Small, consistent focus doesn't just add up, it compounds. Chapter 8. The Science Behind It. What happened to Maya wasn't luck, and it definitely wasn't magic. There's actually a lot of science behind why her focus started to change. When you pay attention to something, really pay attention, a part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex lights up. That's the part responsible for decision-making, planning, and staying on task. But here's the important part. Every time your mind wanders and you gently bring it back, you're not just trying harder, you're training your brain, literally. Neuroscientists compare it to building a pathway in a forest. At first, the trail is rough and hard to follow, but the more you walk it, the clearer and easier it becomes. Focus works the same way. When you keep jumping between things, tabs, messages, notifications, random thoughts, that pathway gets interrupted. Your brain starts expecting short, fast bursts of attention. Distraction becomes the default. But when you slow down and return your mind to one thing at a time, again and again, something changes. That pathway strengthens. The brain adapts. Staying focused becomes easier not because you're forcing it, but because your brain gets better at it. This is why Ichigyo Zamai works so well. It doesn't fight the brain, it works with it. One task, full presence. And when the mind wanders, which it will, you calmly bring it back. No self-judgment, no frustration, just training. Over time, this simple practice builds a kind of mental endurance. The same way lifting a small weight every day eventually makes you stronger. Focus strengthens focus. That's the whole secret. Chapter 9. Beyond Achievement. Harvard hit her the way Harvard hits everyone. Fast, loud, and demanding. On the first week, Maya felt a little lost. The lectures were sharper, the homework heavier, and the people around her brilliant in ways she hadn't seen at home. It was easy to compare herself and feel small. 100 small doubts would creep in on the long walk back to her dorm. But there was one steady thing she kept doing. The ritual. Phone out of the room, one tab, one clear task. A short block of protected time in the small breath that started each session. Not because she believed it would solve everything instantly, but because it had worked before, patiently and quietly. She didn't suddenly feel smarter than everyone else, far from it. What changed was how she showed up. While other students raced between assignments, clubs, and late-night social feeds, Maya practiced being present. She approached a problem, sat with it, and didn't try to hack her way through by flitting between 15 half-started tasks. Slowly, that steadiness paid off. Professors who had seen hundreds of students noticed her attention to detail. A lab manager asked if she wanted to help on a small project, a year-long research effort on fault-tolerant software for satellite data. It wasn't glamorous at first, cleaning logs, running test suites, writing tidy comments, but it mattered, and Maya treated it like everything else. One task, full presence. That project led to more responsibility. Months of careful, focused work built trust. She moved from testing to writing small modules. Then she helped design data pipelines that actually ran in production. The pieces she'd once read about, telemetry, latency, fault recovery, suddenly made sense because she'd learned to hold a single problem in her mind long enough to see the edges of it. Chapter 10. The Real Lesson. In the end, Ichigyo Zamai didn't just help Maya get better grades or stay focused longer. It changed the way she felt in her own life. She noticed little things again, like how her food actually tasted, or how people smiled when she genuinely listened. Her days didn't feel like they were slipping through her fingers anymore. Everything slowed down just a bit, in a good way. And honestly, this is where it connects to you. Because you've probably had days where you were busy the whole time, but when you look back, you don't even remember what you did. You're tired, but not fulfilled. Your mind is full, but not focused. It happens to all of us. Not because we're lazy, not because we're unmotivated, but because our attention is being pulled in 1,000 directions every single minute. Maya's biggest realization was simple. Life feels better when you're actually present for it. And I want you to try something. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Your one small task. Pick one thing you're going to do with your full attention. Just one, nothing complicated. Maybe eat your next meal without touching your phone. Finish one task without bouncing between apps. Listen to someone without planning your reply. Clean one small area slowly and intentionally. Read something without checking notifications. Whatever you choose, commit to that single moment. No multitasking, no rushing, no just 2 seconds on your phone. Just you doing one thing. That's it. That's Ichigyo Zamai. Thank you for watching. Now choose your one moment and actually live it.